Free.
Hello, today our group will be talking about negotiation styles in Saudi Arabia and Japan. Our presentation consists of 4 parts. First will be about historical and cultural roots that influence business negotiation style in Saudi Arabia. The second part will be about historical and cultural roots that influence negotiation style in Japan. The third part will be about similarities and differences of the business negotiation style in terms of people, process, and problem. And the last part will be about recommendation for negotiation in Saudi Arabia and Japan. Historical and cultural roots of negotiation in Saudi Arabia. The historical journey of Saudi Arabia leads to the foundation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that is considered to be a regional power. Since then, the institutional and organizational power has always been distributed unequally. And that's why in the modern business world, managers prefer an autocratic or centralized decision-making style that is hierarchical, and it's always that decision will be deferred to the highest-ranking representative. Never managers give the decisions during the negotiations if for example, the higher ranking is not presented. High pressure tactics should not be used, as this will be interpreted as disrespectful and potentially placing Saudi counterparts in a position where they lose face. Saudi Arabia is the most gender segregated country in the world. And that is why if, for example, a female businesswoman would like to meet a male counterpart in public locations, it's better and it's actually expected that she will be with a man, with another man. People in this country prefer to do business with those they know, those they like and trust. So building lasting and trusting relationship is very important to most Saudis. This is why before Saudis take any decisions, they need to meet other counterparts several times. The culture of Saudi Arabia is extensively influenced by the religion and devoted to Islam. Actually, there is no strict division between a religion and other areas of life. As the result, in negotiation, Arabians expect generosity, dignity, respect, and solidarity. In Saudi Arabia culture, confrontation and conflict are avoided, and compromise, passion, and self-control are expected. It is considered normal in Saudi Arabia culture for a person to be aggressive and loud. Bargaining is in the habit and culture of most Saudis, and they love and they can do it. Saudis are very skilled negotiators, and however, the decisions are made very slowly. Adapting clothing and behaviors to the local culture is critical, particularly for women, and can help in establishing business relationships. Hands and feet also are the parts of etiquette and are linked to specific customs. For example, when shaking hands, the right hand should always be used, and the left hand is considered unclean. And in the same way, the soles of the shoes or feet should never be shown, as this is perceived as insulting to the counterpart and highly offensive. Feet should be kept flat on the ground, or extreme care should be taken when crossing legs.
So now I will continue the discussion on historical and cultural roots of negotiation in Japan. Um, to understand the Japanese negotiation style, some knowledge of Japanese cultural tradition is necessary. Japanese society is ethnically homogeneous. Order and harmony are highly respected and regarded as prime virtues of the society. Japanese people not only share a common language and culture, but they also have gradually adopted common social values. The concept of order can be traced back to Confucianism, a system of ethics and philosophy introduced from China, which has exerted a strong influence on social values in Japan for centuries. This philosophy suggests the hierarchy of order, which establishes a vertical relationship in a society. That is, each person is positioned in a rank subordinate to the one above him or her. This Japanese tradition is reflected in company negotiation style as well. One distinctive feature of Japanese style is step-by-step negotiation, which is based upon the hierarchy of order within a particular company. By adhering to this negotiation style, Japanese companies do not have to make all of their decisions during one negotiation session. Harmony is another important factor that stems from proper participation by individuals in group activities. One distinctive characteristic of this negotiation style is a consensual decision-making process, which has been adopted by Japanese companies in their business negotiations. This process is referred to as nemawashi or ringsei. Continuing on the concept of nemawashi and ringsei, one distinctive characteristic of this negotiation style is again the consensual decision-making process that has been explained earlier. With an awareness of both these concepts, one may have a better understanding of some aspects of Japanese international business negotiation. The term nemawashi describes the practice or preference of Japanese negotiators to engage in informal talks with other negotiators prior to formal meetings. This communication, according to Japanese tradition, serves to prepare a better surrounding and the soil to ensure the continued health of the new plant. In Japanese companies, there are many kinds of intra-company meetings which are held to exchange and transfer information for the purpose of facilitating the process of collective decision making. And this can be very well used as a weapon during the negotiation process by the Japanese companies. As a consequence of the step-by-step negotiation style and the collective decision-making system, Japanese corporations strongly prefer that negotiations take place in their home country rather than in a foreign country. Ringsei describes the process discussed above, where business proposals devised by lower-ranking company employees are presented to middle-level company officials in charge of the relevant sections of the company and are eventually submitted to top-level senior executives for their final decisions. Japanese corporations as well as government offices continue to use the ringsei system because it has certain advantages over other less complicated decision-making processes. So in conclusion, the above mentioned negotiation styles are derived largely from the cultural behavior patterns of the Japanese culture. And Japanese culture places more importance on social identity and group participation as has been seen above.
In this section, we look at the similarities and differences of the business negotiation style in terms of people, process, problem. These are the key elements of negotiation for each section. First, we look at the people dimension. Within people dimension, there are three aspects: interpersonal relationship, vertical relationship, the mandate, as well as the stakeholders map. Interpersonal relationship. In Saudi Arabia and in Japan, interpersonal relationship is viewed differently. In Saudi Arabia, it's very important to build close personal relationships as business deals depend on them and trust. It takes time to get to know each other. In Japan, however, while personal relationships are important, they are not viewed in the same close manner and in fact are unemotional. Interpersonal relationships are usually used to get to know, like, and trust the people they are doing business with, but it's not a emotional engagement. Second, vertical relationship and mandate. In Saudi Arabia, negotiators frequently lack the authority to close a deal and have to seek guidance from their superiors. Superiority is usually granted due to age. Women, unfortunately, are not typically valued as equals in the business world, so women will likely be excluded from negotiation. In Japan, however, the Japanese approach to negotiations are as a group. Consensus building, a process known as nemawashi, is fundamental to the Japanese way of making decisions. In Japan, they don't come to the negotiation table with a personal view, and all decisions are made collectively. Mandate in Saudi Arabia is thus granted to the superiors, while in Japan it's granted as a group. Stakeholder mapping is also different. In Saudi Arabia, stakeholder mapping usually involves the department itself together with the superiors and higher ups. However, in Japan, it usually involves many stakeholders from various departments in the company holding different positions from the lowest rank to the highest rank due to the consensus building among all parties involved. Next, the problem dimension. Under the problem dimension, there are four key aspects. Saudi Arabia and Japan both share the same motivation in that they are both long-term oriented countries and cultures that value relationship building. Next, solutions at the table. In Saudi Arabia, decisions are usually not made at the table, and it's rude to rush decisions during the meeting. Decisions are usually made after much thought and is usually done after the meeting. In Japan, similarly, decisions are rarely made, if ever, in an actual meeting, but it's usually done beforehand and decided before once they find it, and then they finally announce it in the meeting itself. Solutions away from the table. Both Saudi Arabia and Japan are keen on finding solutions away from the table to not ruin the relationship, as they are both face-saving cultures that do not want to have conflict. Fourth, justifications. In Saudi Arabia, they frequently use affective appeals based on emotions. But in Japan, there's usually a balance between statistics and facts as well as emotions. In fact, too much emotions is perceived as unprofessional. The next, process dimension. Under this, there are three key aspects. The first, agenda and organization. In Saudi Arabia, negotiations tend to be less structured and circular. Saudi Arabian negotiators can jump from topic to topic and discuss the same topic many times over. This is not to waste time, but in fact, it is to allow them more time to digest new information, make mental connections, and move past uncomfortable subjects quickly. In Japan, it is The negotiation is structured in the sense that it is to gain understanding of the business deal and the parties involved, but it is not task oriented. It's not task oriented where they come in and they want to make a decision on the spot. Logistics. In Saudi Arabia, there tends to be a lax behavior towards punctuality. So being late to meetings is not uncommon as time is flexible to them. Dressing is also very important to signify formality. In Japan, they tend to be very strict about time and punctuality, and even 1 minute late is considered rude. Coming well dressed and prepared is crucial in showing seriousness in the deal. Communication style. In Saudi Arabia, being loud signifies passion and enthusiasm and interest in doing the business deal. But in Japan, it's viewed as the opposite, as it's considered aggressive. In Japan, they tend to be quiet and cooperative in their communication style.
So with this understanding of Japanese negotiation culture and Saudi Arabian negotiation culture, we'd like to come up with some recommendations. The first part would deal with Japanese negotiating with a Saudi Arabia counterparty. And the second part would be talking about Saudi Arabia negotiating with a Japanese counterparty. Based on the sharing of the previous slides, we have been able to put forward that both these cultures have a high importance on saving face, but they do also additionally have their specificities, which is what we'll focus on when giving these recommendations. So for Saudi Arabia, personal relationships and connections are extremely important, which means that the counterparty would need to be able to invest in getting to spend time to build a personal relationship and not just keep it as a business relationship, which this could mean meeting outside informally, and especially this is especially important in the initial stages of any negotiation. For Saudi Arabia, hierarchy is extremely important, and the expectation is that equals would be dealing with equals. Another specific consideration for many Saudi Arabia organizations is the involvement of advisors, who are basically extremely trusted people who would normally be sitting on the right side of the principal. So they would be trusted either simply because they have a very long relationship with the principal, or it could be because they have extreme detailed knowledge about the industry, which is being considered as part of the negotiation. As already shared, bargaining is an important part of the negotiation culture in Saudi Arabia. However, high pressure tactics are not. So this understanding will be quite important, especially for Japanese negotiating with Saudi Arabia, because the Japanese style of negotiation really does not implicitly consider bargaining as an important part, or in fact, it's usually not done. In Saudi Arabia, there could be voices which are raised during the negotiations, but those more often than not are indicative of interest and passion in the negotiation. So the recommendation to the Japanese negotiators in this situation would be to just stay calm and pleasant and not be offended. It's especially important for Saudi Arabian counterparts to be able to find if there are some non-commercial factors involved. By non-commercial factors, we mean if by associating with, for example, the Japanese company who's negotiating with them, will they be able to get maybe some training or knowledge transfer? Or is there some prestige associated with the Japanese company's name being linked to the Saudi Arabia counterparty? So sometimes these non-commercial factors are even more important than the tangible dollar amounts or the price involved. The concept of time for Saudi Arabia counterparts are usually very relaxed. And this is something which Japanese, when negotiating with Saudi Arabia counterparties, would be good to be mindful of, especially because they tend to be very, very punctual in the Japanese culture. The Saudi Arabia discussions can often be very circular, something already highlighted in the previous slide as well. So for this situation, the recommendation from us would be to just go with the flow and to give enough time for the counterparties to go into the negotiations, to have their talks, even though they may not exactly be on point. They may look like they're jumping from task to task, but to be patient and to just go with the flow. Next, we'll be talking about recommendations for a Saudi Arabia team when negotiating with the Japanese counterparty. So usually in this situation, there would be a key person of the Japanese counterparty who would be a very important member of the whole negotiation. So which means the Saudi Arabia team, it would be suggested that they spend time to get to know this key person. With Japanese counterparties, the expectation is not to raise voices and to have a very polite approach throughout. Silence is very, very acceptable culturally in the Japanese style of negotiation. Face saving is also an important part of the Japanese culture, very similar to the Saudi Arabia culture. So publicly, disagreements are totally avoided. There could be a lot of questions coming up from the Japanese counterparty, different members asking what may seem like similar questions, but we have to be patient and answer everyone's question would be our recommendation to the Saudi Arabia team, and to not push for immediate commitments, which is to say that once the questions have been answered, not to expect that immediately you'll get a commitment simply because the question has been answered. This relates simply to the fact because Japanese approach negotiations as a group. So when a lot of questions are being asked by many, many people, it's to facilitate the group to make a decision. The decisions actually are often made outside the room and announced likely in the room in a formal setting. Even though the decision making takes time, the suggestion was always that once the decision this has been done, the decision has been finalized, you have to be ready to very, very quickly start. For Saudi Arabia teams negotiating with Japanese counterparts, punctuality is something very important, because not being punctual would be considered as disrespectful. So this is a key consideration which we would suggest the Saudi Arabia team to always be mindful of when dealing with Japanese counterparties. With this, we come to an end of our presentation. Thank you very much.